Hi guys, welcome back. So let's talk about some of England's issues following that first test defeat against Australia, and let's talk about some selection changes. I'm going to talk about the selection changes I would make, but I'd love to know your selection changes and your thoughts on how England played as well. Now, if you haven't caught the first episode of my new podcast with Zach from Hacker Time Rugby, the Rugby Ramble, it's on my channel now. It's also up on Spotify, so do have a look at that. We have good fun talking over the weekend's events and the talking points. Now, I don't want to come across as whinging, I just want to talk about what I saw as the issues. Number one, and I mentioned this briefly on the podcast, I think England are trying to learn a bit of rocket science before they've actually mastered the fundamentals, and we'll come on to the fundamentals in point two. But their new attacking shape is very complicated, it's very unpredictable. We saw the wingers roaming everywhere, we saw Stewart moving about, we saw different first receivers, we saw different people passing from the base, but Australia didn't fall for it. They had a big defensive line. England really only cut them open once from that system, which was Curry. Then it was an amazing tackle from Corambetti to stop it. So it didn't really work. So I'm not saying they should scrap this system. I'm just saying at the moment it's not looking like it's opening up the holes that they would want, and that is an issue. Now, the second issue I think England has is actually just the basics of their attack. Now, what are the basics of a good attack? Well, you need individuals with power, pace, step, handoff, offloads, and we didn't see enough of that. We saw a bit of power, we saw a little bit of a step from Noel, for example, but there really wasn't a huge amount individually to trouble the Australians. The forwards, they did make some powerful carries, they did do some nice tip-on passes as well, but there was definitely an absence of offloads to get in behind the defence, and when we saw Australia do that, we were in trouble. The continuity is not quite there. You really don't want to give the time for the defensive line to set, and Australia set really nicely. So it doesn't really matter if whatever your attacking shape is, if you can't get those basics in place, you're going to struggle. Now, I want to see England really attack the line more with their first receiver, whoever that is, and then really pull power players onto them. It looked like they were pulling back a bit too early. Australia were reading it quite well, and as in the point I just made, we didn't really have the pace, the step to exploit it. Now, issue 3 for me is the Smith-Farrell axis. It just doesn't look that threatening. We know Owen Farrell carries very little running threat. When you compare him against Deolande, Karevi, Tapia, Henshaw, it is very, very poor, to be honest, so it's not worrying defences. And does it play to Smith's strengths? He wants to step and do his jinking and holding the defence in the face of the defence. I think is an out-and-out 10, and when he gets played deep and he doesn't have those guys outside him with extreme pace, I'm not sure it really works. I'm pretty sure Eddie Jones is going to give it another go. If it doesn't work this time, I think it's in big trouble. It certainly was an issue in game 1. Now, the fourth issue I think England had is how they used their subs, or the finishers as Eddie Jones calls them. It didn't help them win the game, and of course that's easy to say in hindsight, but I think it definitely was a factor. Genge, George and Hill, I think, all went off a bit too early when they were playing pretty well. I don't think that helped them when Mako, Cowan-Dickie and Chesham came on, but again, in hindsight, that helps. I was doing a live stream at the time, and the thing people were shouting out for, including myself, was, right, we're behind, we need to get Henry Arundel on before it's too late. And what happened? Well, Eddie Jones left it too late, and when he came on, the game was gone. Many of you saying, well, Australia kind of stopped trying too much then because the game was gone. I don't know about that, but certainly it was too late. So in hindsight, maybe, yes, it's easy to say, but it definitely was an issue. Now, the fifth and final issue I think England had was selection. Here's their lineup for game 1, and these are the changes I would make in the forwards. I haven't changed 1 to 6. I think they went okay. They gave England a good platform, plenty of go forward. I know plenty of you didn't like Toje and Hill's antics, and I understand that, but I still think they did pretty well, and I don't see a gain from changing anybody there. Unfortunately, Tom Curry with his head injury is out of the tour, which is a shame because he was playing great when he went off. We do have 2 players who could step in quite nicely, well, maybe even 3 with Ludlam as well. But for me, it's either Willis or Underhill, and I think it's probably time for Willis to have a go here. I think he could be really effective at the breakdown, especially because Hooper was such a pain there. So I think I'd play him there. He's very physical. He's another line-out option as well, as is Ludlam. So there's line-out options all over the place. And I'd put Ludlam at 8, who I wanted at 8 originally. Billy did okay. He crashed it up. They used him in midfield. The issue is he's just a bit too slow, to be honest. He's not that nimble. And I think for this level, he was just found out a touch. He tried hard, but I'm not really seeing it. When Ludlam came on, he made a massive impact. So I think Willis 7, Ludlam 8 for me. The backs changes. Here they are. Kerr, I think, had a decent game. I think he'll go well again. And I'd keep Smith there. I know plenty of people said he had a poor game and it wasn't a great game for Smith. Although I don't think England use him to his strengths. I'd have him as the out-and-out 10, taking the ball to the line with much more threat in and around him. And of course, Kerr and Smith play together at club. So that's the way I'd go. I'd give Smith more game time. Farrell I've put down to the bench, covering 10. Now, I know it's a bit of a shot in the dark, but either Porter or Dingwall I'd bring into 12. I'm going for Porter. Give Smith something off his shoulder, someone who can hit a powerful line, who's actually a decent decoy. Then hopefully we'll get the best out of Marchant, who we haven't seen the best out of him yet, because I don't think having Farrell at 12 really helps him. He needs someone with a strong running game to run off. And out wide, on the wings, England need pace. I think Stewart's a fantastic player, but pace isn't his forte. So let's get 2 of England's quickest players. Maybe they're 2 quickest players, certainly available here. Arundel and May on the wings. I know Arundel is young, but England need him. He's ready to rock and roll. Get him on there. We'll have Noel on the bench to cover as well in case he's needed. I thought he did pretty well actually in game 1, but I'd get the pace on there to really threaten Australia, and they didn't seem threatened, I thought, when England attacked. On the bench, I keep it pretty much the same, apart from Underhill obviously dropping onto the bench there for Ludlam, and as I mentioned, Farrell drops to the bench, as does Noel. Anyway, guys, that's the way I'd go. Those are the issues I saw in game 1. Pop all those comments below, and I'll catch you next time.